Pakistan has gone through the throes of what many outside Pakistan would call a kind of a civil uprising. Actually, it's a misnomer to call it a hybrid government. It's actually a military government with a civilian facade. These are people who have come out on the streets to press for the release of their leader. When the marchers were marching onto Islamabad, it looked like there's going to be a massive upsurge. There is virtually no growth taking place. The government is extremely unpopular, as is the army. Really doesn't count for much. The Prime Minister of Pakistan is virtually like the private secretary to the army chief, what somebody might call the force of history. That seems to be against the Pakistan army. I'm not suggesting that the Pakistan army is going to go out of power in a week, maybe a month, maybe 1 or 2 years. But I think the momentum is firmly against the Pakistan army, even more so because the army is not really equipped to handle the multiple crises that exist in Pakistan. Once again, Pakistan has gone through the throes of what many outside Pakistan would call a kind of a civil uprising, a major political protest launched by supporters of Imran Khan, who marched on the capital Islamabad to press for the release of their leader, who has been in jail for more than a year now. And of course other leaders who've been put in jail under some very trying circumstances by what is called the hybrid government. Actually, it's a misnomer to call it a hybrid government. It's actually a military government with a civilian facade. But these are people who have come out on the streets to press for the release of their leader, to press for a return of the mandate which they had won in the last election, and to undo some of the constitutional changes that were rammed through parliament on the instructions of the military by the puppet parliament which exists in Pakistan. There's a lot of debate going on because when the marchers were marching onto Islamabad, it looked like there's going to be a massive upsurge, and one did not quite know whether the government will be able to survive any kind of a long, elongated protest in Islamabad for very long, because the government is extremely unpopular politically, and while the economy has stabilized a little bit, it is still very, very fragile. It's still pretty much in the ICU. And hasn't quite come out of it. There is virtually no growth taking place. The growth is very marginal, about 2.5%, maybe 3%, depending on whose figures you take. And really, while inflation numbers might have come down, economic distress levels remain extremely high. So the government is extremely unpopular, as is the army. So there were serious questions being raised when there were the scenes of these massive crowds moving towards Islamabad. But once the crowds reached Islamabad, there was a massive crackdown from the military. Again, there is a debate going on as to whether there were any casualties, because there was, of course, firing by the Pakistan army, which probably has conquered its country once again. But there was a lot of firing, a lot of tear gas shelling to break up the crowds that had amassed in the center of Islamabad. But there's no certainty as to how many people were actually killed, how many were actually injured. Apparently, the hospitals are not releasing any information. There's a kind of an information blackout, clampdown inside Pakistan. Incidentally, when Imran Khan's party announced this march, There was a massive lockdown. Virtually half the country was in a lockdown mode. In the Punjab police did what the Punjab police always does, crack down on PTI cadres, put them in jail, detained them, put obstacles in their path to march towards Islamabad. In Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, however, they were not able to manage this because the government out there is a PTI government. So bulk of the crowds who came to Islamabad were from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, led by the Chief Minister and Imran Khan's wife. And the spin which the Punjab-dominated establishment and their hangers-on in Lahore and Islamabad tried to give was that PTI is now basically a Pashtun party, or this demonstration is only a Pashtun kind of a demonstration, and the Punjabis haven't really come out in support of Imran Khan, which is a completely disingenuous explanation because in Punjab the kind of crackdown and the kind of lockdowns that were imposed clearly ensured that there would be no crowds coming from Punjab. In any case, Punjabis are quite notorious, especially the ones in Pakistan, for a lot of bombast, a lot of boastful attitude, but when it actually comes to delivering, they kind of peter out. So if there were no major crowds coming out of Punjab to confront a quasi-military or a semi-military regime, that was kind of understandable. The Pakhtuns are, of course, made of different metal, and they were willing to butt their heads against the military establishment. There is a lot of debate on who won and who lost. Now, on the face of it, it would seem that Imran Khan's Lashkar came to Islamabad, and the government in Islamabad was able to repulse this advance on the capital city. It's almost like it was a foreign force invading the capital of Pakistan, and the valiant Pakistan army, which keeps reconquering its own country over and over again by firing on civilians, by brutalizing civilians, by capturing politics, was able to repulse yet another assault on their bastion. Now, that on the face of it is how it would look. That is what is the narrative which is being sold by the military and the media, which is entirely under the thumb of the military. That is the narrative which is trying to be sold. And it does have some weight in it on the face of it. The military has a government which is entirely a puppet government, really doesn't count for much. The Prime Minister of Pakistan is virtually like the private secretary to the army chief in the local appointment of a Prime Minister, because he basically is a rubber stamp guy who rubber stamps whatever comes to him from the GHQ. He has no personality of his own. He's a bit of a caricature, really. If you look at the way he speaks, the way he talks, he probably won't get a dog catcher's vote, and he's the Prime Minister. So what you've seen is that you have a compliant and a pliant civilian government, which is basically a facade for the military. They have ensured that they stack the parliament after a stolen election with their own people, and they have brought in a constitutional amendment that has emasculated the judiciary, got a firmer control over the judiciary. So the judicial organ is also now working more or less at the behest of the military establishment. The army chief has given himself, through the parliament of course, an extension for as long as he can maintain it. So there's a 5-year term for the services chiefs, and there's no age limit defined. There is no limit to how many extensions he can get. So theoretically, at least, the army chief can stay in power for as long as he wants, maybe until he dies. Now that is the theoretical part. So if you look at it from that point of view, and the fact that the military government or the military regime or the military backed regime was able to repulse a challenge to their authority in Islamabad, it would appear that the military is victorious once again. But I would imagine that has only happened because of brute force. There is no political support for this regime. In fact, the politicians who have gathered around and who are in power, whatever whatever that power is worth, because it's very circumscribed by the military, the guys who are in power do not pull any political weight now. If there was going to be a free and fair election, they would be virtually wiped out. In fact, the Muslim League Nawaz, which was at one point of time the biggest party in Pakistan, was actually wiped out in the last election. They won by a sleight of hand. They won because the elections were rigged at the last minute. In fact, there was both pre-poll rigging, polling day rigging, and post-poll rigging to twist and distort the results to give them a victory. In so much so that there are some very credible reports that even Nawaz Sharif, who is the man behind PMLN, the party is named after him, probably had lost his own election and was finally made to win at the last minute by a very narrow margin. So politically these guys have no support, and politically the support is either with Imran Khan, if you talk about mainstream politics, but if you go beyond mainstream politics, it is people like Dr. Maharang Baloch in Balochistan, who at the snap of a finger can collect 100,000 people to come to hear her. You have people like Imran Khan and in mainstream politics, who has shown the ability to mobilize his supporters to march on Islamabad virtually in the snap of his fingers. Normally, it was only the religious parties which were able to bring out their supporters and their cadres in these numbers with so much of zeal and commitment, and mainstream political parties would probably require weeks and months of preparation to carry out an agitation like this. Imran Khan, however, within days of him being in prison and instructing his party men that he wants a march like this, they were able to organize it. This is despite all the Byzantine intrigues that went on within the party, between the party, some of the party leaders and the military establishment, who everybody seems to think that politics can still operate in Pakistan on the principles in that worked maybe 20 years back. I think, and I know this is going to be a controversial thing to say, politics in Pakistan has taken a turn. The old style politics, I'm not saying it's gone out of the window, it still survives, the army still remains very powerful, but I think its power has been seriously pared down. I think its acceptability has been seriously pared down. That is reflected in the fact that to stop this march, the kind of panicky reactions there were, that the entire country was in a communication lockdown. There were phone services were affected, internet services were suspended, mobile internet was not available. You are imposing even bans on VPNs so that people cannot access social media platforms like X. Incidentally, X has just about maybe 2 million, maybe 3 million subscribers in Pakistan. And even then, the military regime is so panicky about X because they feel that mobilization can take place through social media. And in this particular episode, so there was a lockdown, complete communication lockdown. They had even blocked physical access to the capital. It was almost like Islamabad was putting itself under a siege from these marauding invaders who were coming into Islamabad. So they dug up roads, Pakistan was converted into Containeristan. Islamabad became Containerabad. There were containers all over the place to block these people coming in. you had police officers make boastful claims about how they will ensure that people cannot come in into Islamabad, and yet, despite all of that, Imran Khan supporters were able to reach the city center, D Chowk as it's called, and then they were repulsed. So, in one sense, Imran Khan won this round. But like I said, there is Dr. Maharang Baloch in Balochistan. You have Imran Khan in the mainstream politics. You have the PTM, which is able to bring out huge numbers of people in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province or among the Pashtuns in the northwest of Pakistan. So you have that as a people's movement emerging. Within Sindh, there is growing restiveness on the issue of water, which the Pakistan army is trying to now steal so that it can start its corporate farming project in the south of Punjab, and for that they will need canals, and most of the water that would have normally flown into Sindh would be diverted to these farmlands. So Sindh is very restive right now. We see scenes in Pakistan occupied Kashmir where the army is cursed because it's tried to impose a lot of restrictions on the freedoms, whatever little freedoms they enjoy in POK. And in Punjab, despite the fact that Punjabis do not have it in them to come out on the streets and agitate in the way maybe the Pathans or the Baloch can do, and yet if push comes to shove and it comes down to voting from the comfort of just going to a ballot station or a polling station and putting in their votes, the Punjabis showed in the February general elections that they are willing to support a party or an organization which is against the military establishment and the system that the Pakistan army has created in Pakistan. If you look at it from that point of view, and what somebody might call the force of history, that seems to be against the Pakistan army. I'm not suggesting that the Pakistan army is going to go out of power in a week, maybe a month, maybe 1 or 2 years, but I think the momentum is firmly against the Pakistan army, even more so because the army is not really equipped to handle the multiple crises that exist in Pakistan. Military officers by training are not equipped to handle the complexities of modern political and national life. They are not diplomats, they are not foreign policy experts, even though they might imagine themselves to be. They are not economists. Some of them might make good businessmen, but not all of them make good businessmen. And frankly, they distort, in countries like Pakistan, they distort the system in a way that it becomes destructive for the national life of a country. And we are seeing that happen. We've seen that happen in Egypt, for example. We are seeing that happen in Pakistan, and many other countries. Similar examples emerge. And yet the Pakistan army feels that it is the only organization, institution that is able or has the capacity to keep Pakistan together. But if Pakistan is now dependent only on the army to survive, then I think it's pretty much game up as far as Pakistan is concerned. It cannot continue indefinitely, especially because there are now voices from below which are challenging the authority of the Pakistan army. And then, in addition to all of this, there are very serious challenges to Pakistan's security which are coming from groups like the Baloch freedom fighters in Balochistan, which is very different from the political or the civil society movement and the mobilization which has been done by people like Dr. Maharang Baloch and the Baloch Yakjehti Committee, which is the organization, umbrella organization under which this mobilization is taking place in Balochistan, or the Pashtun Tahaffuz movement and the NDM in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or the Pashtun areas. Asides of them, there are the Baloch freedom fighters who are challenging the might of the Pakistan army by force of arms. There are the TTP characters, the terrorists and the militants, the jihadists who at one point of time were raised by the Pakistan army against their enemies, India in particular, who have now turned their guns on the Pakistani state. So there are those challenges coming in. The economy is tanking, it's not picking up. The politics is in complete disarray. So if this looks like victory to the Pakistan army, good luck to Pakistan.